I have a question for a lot for you guys actually, because I get a lot of guys coming to me like, "Oh, I don't necessarily have the funds or the money to take a girl out on a date right now." And for me, it's always been the same. Like, I don't really spend any money on a girl on the first date. If anything, it's maybe a coffee or a drink. But like for the longest time, I would just take a girl for a walk where there's a scenic area that I know of, or even like straight to the house, whatever, because it's more casual. But like, yeah, I don't do extravagant dates or anything like that. What about you guys? Like,
No,
what's
never
your
for a
ideal
first date.
first date?
I mean,
Oh,
your first date.
before we get into that, Brandon, did you have something more you want to say
Oh,
with
sorry.
like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you're good. One more thing I'll add that I've been doing more recently, and I've seen it make a difference, is leaving a lot more empty space in conversation for the girl to fill in. I think a lot of guys are fucking motor mouths, especially when they get nervous. They're like, "Ugh," they just keep fucking spewing stuff. Like I do it purposefully. So like say there's a high point conversation, I'll specifically stop right there and kind of like it almost gets like tensiony for a second, right? And then she fills in the empty space. And the more she does that, the more she's gonna find herself being like, fuck, I like this guy. Fuck, there's something about this guy. So that's something I've been implementing a lot more, and I've noticed some real differences.
Yeah, that's so funny to me. Just
That's some serious game,
like
dude. That's good.
sometimes I would just look at her and just like with a slight grin maybe and just
Hmm.
like yeah.
Just foaming from the mouth.
I did a
Sometimes
video. That's
de-escalating on a high point too. So like if you guys, because like everybody says, oh, escalate on a high point, but sometimes like withdrawing that little bit of attention on the high point too kind of creates a similar vibe. But yeah,
I did a video where I went around asking girls the number one mistake that most guys make on a first date. And with what Brandon said there, that's so true, where it's like you guys could probably guess what the number one mistake a lot of guys make is talking too much about themselves and not asking the girl any questions or trying to get to know the girl. So if you can
Yep.
use
yeah.
that, just getting curious about the girl, so important.
Just I think as a general rule, I know Sartain talks about like not talking about yourself, and I think he quotes a stat where it's the most effective indicator of whether or not there will be a second date is if the woman says the word me or I at least 7 times. I think on a first date, talk about yourself as little as possible. Just in general, talk about yourself. You can talk about things. You can talk. There's a big difference between not talking about yourself and not talking, but very rarely ever talk about yourself on a date or just with people in general. I mean, to be honest, people really don't give a fuck about you or your experiences until they know that you care about them. So just having that like genuine curiosity, okay, who is this girl? What makes her tick? And asking her all those questions, and then just leaving yourself as this, oh, I'm still a mystery.
Yeah.
Hmm.
While we're talking about interesting like stats and stuff like that, there's one that Tinder came out with that I did see when I accessed their stats. It was something like the fifth date is when daters tend to have like a cooking date. And that is the point when when it's considered much more intimate for the long-term relationship. So, like, it's kind of the sweet spot is the fifth date is when people are having dates where they cook for each other or one person cooks for them, something like that. So it's funny if you do it as a first date, it works incredibly well. But so it made a lot of sense when I saw this statistic. I was like, oh, every time I cooked with a woman, it every single one that I can remember, like we kept seeing each other for however long, or she had to go to another country and whatever, so it was cut short. So that I'm just putting that out there. That's a pretty interesting stat.
Don't sleep on the cook dates. Okay. I've actually never tried that.
No, it's great. Like one I'll give you one example. I went to with a Korean place, some hot chocolate place in the middle of the city, and then she took me to a place nearby where she just likes to sit down and just watch everyone. And I was like, this is kind of for me that's boring. And I'm like, I have better things to do than just hang out in the middle of the city and just sit down on a step. I was like, that's something a tourist would do when they're tired. I didn't say that, but I was like, yeah, it's a good time to take her home. And I had a scheduled delivery for groceries later anyway. So I said, I gotta go home for this delivery. They're delivering food. Do you want to come and get you want to cook fajitas with me, for example? And then she just came with me and then we cooked together. There have been plenty of times when I baked cookies. Talk about those gingerbread houses. And yeah, stuff like that. Every
It's the
time it's
perfect
something
first
to
date,
do
bro.
with cooking, it's just pretty much the perfect first date, maybe.
Shit. I gotta brush up on my cooking skills then.
No, actually, looping that back into your question on spending money on the first date, bro. That was a big part of why I developed gingerbreads. This was like probably 5, 6 years ago. I was a little bit broke, but I was like, wait, that's women love cute, stupid holiday activities. And so I just hit up like a bunch of girls from Tinder and from Cold Approach and from wherever. I just started inviting them like, oh, hey, do you want to make a gingerbread house and drink some wine? And gingerbread houses are like $5, $10. You get a cheap bottle of wine. So it's like a $20 date. She's straight over at your house. You make the gingerbread houses, which takes like 10, 15 minutes. And then afterwards, I mean, like the rest is history. It's such a good date, but it's still fun and girls don't feel sleazy about it.
That's so
Cannot
unique.
recommend it
You
enough.
do that. That's very unique. You do that outside of December though, like in the middle of
No,
July.
no, no, no. That's just like as soon as Christmas season starts. So like right after Halloween is when I'm starting it.
Got it. Okay.
If
But
if
any
you're
date
nice,
like that, bro. Like holiday
if
dates, holiday theme dates straight to the place are awesome. My go-to is still generally drinks. So like a going on a date later, we'll go grab a scorpion bowl. It's like $25. You have a couple of drinks, you have a good time. It's fun because tiki bars are great. And like anything like that. I believe the first dates should be under $50 tops.
if you
The
weigh
girl has
like
to
99 pounds and you eat 1 pound of gingerbread, you're basically 1% gingerbread man. So there you go. Anyway,
Yeah, the
anyone
girl
want to say
has to
something?
like you for your the girl has to like you for personality. That's why it doesn't make sense to spend money on dates. I had a client, he went on 6 dates and spent $800. And
Oof.
he like quickly kissed her like on the third date. And I'm like, bro, forget about her.
The
Just
grandma peck.
find the next one,
Ah.
yeah. And
Oh,
like what the
I have
fuck?
a guy doing live-in right now who
Yeah.
was consistently a foodie call, and you would take him to like nice places, like $300 to $500 dinners. I'm like, dude, you gotta stop doing that, please.
Yeah, it
Never
just
yeah.
again.
doesn't make sense. The date has to be set up in a logistical way where you can switch venues so you can get laid on the first date. And after the first date, I don't care if I'm spending money on a girl. I don't know about you, but if I want to have a nice dinner and I'm banging some girl and I like her and I just want to take her with me, then that's cool. But for the first date, I think it's more like a screening tool for me
Yeah.
if he's actually interested in me as a man, because that's what you want, right? Depending on how attractive your girlfriend is, if you want to have like a 9 or 10 or whatever and fake tits and pretty face, she's used to a certain lifestyle on private jet and yacht and whatever, right? So she's gonna cost you more money than like a normal cute secretary kind of girl. But what do you think?
I don't agree with that entirely.
Okay.
Again, to credit Sartain, I think it has to do with how much stimulus the girl requires. And on the whole, I think a lot of those very attractive, well, Miami type of girls are used to a higher level of stimulus. But I know plenty of absolutely gorgeous women who are totally fine to play board games and like go to cheap dinners, even beyond. But I also have no problem spending money on a girl.
Yeah, with the
Like
with the right
not more
guy.
than I would spend on myself, but like, and especially it's specifically to create experiences that I also enjoy and to bring her into those
Mm,
experiences.
yeah.
At that point, I really don't care about like the money. It's more about, are we going to go do this fun experience together?
Mm.
Yeah, the guys who are saying and the women who are like posting this on social media too, when they're saying like the date should be this, the date should be that, and you have to drive me there, and we have to have some good dinner. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. If I want to introduce someone to my life, I'm going to introduce someone to my life. I'm a bucket list kind of guy. I got I got cities I want to go to. If we can fly together there, go together there, that's something. I went crazy. One of the craziest first dates I ever went on was going to another country for a first date. That's specifically because in my book, The Message Game, a line I started using was the free things line. What are free things you would love to do for a first date? And there are multiple women who would say in one of those free options, they would say travel to another country or just travel in general. So one time I was like, fuck it, let's actually fucking do this just for the sake of it, because I want to go to whatever country it may be. anyway. So I'm just an opportunist. But in other cases, I'm simply just aiming for fun things that I genuinely want to do. And by asking her to free things like a lot of the time it's going to be stuff that I like anyway. And some guys are kind of criticizing my advice on this because they think she's the one leading for picking the options. But no, she's giving me free options for me to choose. She's giving me her blueprint, and I am the one who decides which one we go on. And if I don't like any of those free, I'll just pick something else. So she's not the one leading. She's just giving me the information. I'm extracting the information of her ideal first date and then taking her to whatever makes more logistical sense. I did get some which were super impractical, like skydiving and shit like that. I'm like, I gotta go fucking miles away for that. And yeah, that's a bit too, that's something I would probably be interested in maybe, but I don't want to die at this point. So maybe not, and it's far away. So that's a less favorable option. So you just have to remember you have control on choosing where you are going. You can get her input and then choose, but you're the one choosing, basically. You're just getting her information.
You guys know what the CPL is?
The what?
Cost per
What
lead.
is that?
CPL, yeah, cost per lay.
Oh man.
So what you
Yeah.
do, right, when you're dating a girl
CPA,
or
cost per acquisition.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so basically what you do, you take your phone and then you make a note and then you just write down for each girl how much money you spend on her and how much you're getting. If you're getting a blowjob, if you're banging her, and how many times, and then you basically write down how much time you spend, how much money you spend, what did you do, how much fun you had, and then you have the CPL, the cost per lay.
Man,
And
I'm such a Jew. Mine is probably like 33 cents.
I don't know if you guys follow Orion Teraband at all, but I know he talks about the best
Like hacks,
relationship.
right?
Well, yes, like hacks. All relationships are transactional. So we're just decoding what probably most guys and girls care about at the end of the day in those relationships. But the best relationships doesn't feel like there's a transaction. Like the more veiled the transaction is. So I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and count how much money that a girl is costing me. I kind of just had like, okay, does it feel like she's trying to use me, or does it feel like we're just doing fun things together? If we're doing fun things together, then I don't give a fuck.
Yeah,
It's like I agree because I'm not paying to go ice skating for her. I'm paying to go ice skating for me. So it's like I'm paying for that experience, but I'm not spending the money on her. I'm spending the money on myself
Yeah.
doing this fun thing. I'm not paying for her ticket. She can pay for it herself. But yeah, I'm just not buying stuff for women I'm just started dating.
I
yeah,
think a
but
lot
that's
of
why
guys
the
are too
guys,
focused.
yeah, the guys that accuse you that you pay for women, that you pay for money, right? And that you pay for the girls. If you want to do something anyways, and the woman is treating you well, and she likes you, and you can tell that she's respecting you and that she's giving you a good time, then why would you not spend any money on a girl? Or like, if you go to a nightclub or to wherever and you pay for a table and you invite 10 women or 5 women and they all treat you well and you're sleeping with a couple of them, is that paying for women or is that because you want to do that anyways? Because if you want to do it anyways and you just want to have a great time, then why would you not do it?
Or there's a good example Michael Sartain gave in terms of social circle game. It's like because I'm about to go next week to a beach house. There's a friend of his that has like a villa in Mexico or something, and it has 10 bedrooms. He paid for the house, but he doesn't pay for the women's flights to get there or their transportation. The women will travel there, however, by themselves using their own resources. But he paid for the property. It's his literal property, and it's just accessible for people to travel to. So it's like a
Yeah.
social arena for him. He's not paying women. He owns something, and he
I
allows
think
people to go out there to experience it.
the
Yeah,
two
but the
key
beta mates
distinctions is
think that
probably like one, it can't be a consequential amount of money for you. Like if it's an amount of money that hurts, then hey, don't spend it. Just draw that line. But second is, am I doing this to impress the girl? If you're spending money to impress her, then you're coming from a place of qualifying, you're needy, and it's going to hurt you in the long run. It's bad game. But if you're doing this because it's something that you enjoy and you want to share that experience with her, then it doesn't matter how much you spend.
Mm, I love that. And from, I think Ice White said this, where it was like, yeah, you're bringing a girl along for experiences you're already having in your life, right? Like you're bringing her into your life. And I ask guys this question all the time because I know, and I go off on rants about like first date dinner dates. I just don't understand why any guy would want to just sit there and watch a girl stuff her face with food and try to get to know each other while picking food out of your teeth. Like I just think it's a horrible idea. You're sitting there bloated after, holding in farts. Like I ask guys this question all the time, like when they take girls to fancy restaurants for the first date, like is that something you genuinely enjoy? Do you genuinely enjoy being a foodie and testing out different, best places to go to eat? And they're like, no, but I think that the girl would enjoy that. And it comes from that place of like trying to impress the girl, right? Sure, if that's your thing, if you actually like going to fancy restaurants and trying out different food in your city, by all means, yeah, bring her along for that experience. But a lot of times it's just what you said, right? Where it's like the guy trying to impress the girl.
And the issue is it's just not conclusive to game in general, right? Eating. It's like, especially a lot of the time you're sitting across from each other. It's not made like a bar where you can sit side by side, right? Touch each other on her
Mhm.
like on her thigh, all these things. Like eating is not it. Maybe like an ice cream, but not fucking, five
Yeah.
steak
I
dinner.
did have an awesome first date spot. When I lived in a different part of town, there was this little restaurant. Fuck it, I can put guys onto it if they're in Arizona. It's called Cornish Pasty. It was so good, and it's honestly, it's like bar food. It's like almost like hamburgers, but it's like these big, almost like a giant empanada. But it was just so fun because the venue itself is so fucking cool. I loved being in there. Like on my own with no girls, I would go eat there like 3, 4 times a week. It was that good, and it was cheap. Like the food is like $15 a plate. So I would take girls there and they would never finish their food. And we'd always go get a drink afterwards. But I would do that just because I liked it and I would bring them along. But that's the only food date that I've ever consistently done. But it worked like a charm. It would be like food date. There was the best espresso martini in town downstairs, and every girl in the world loves an espresso martini. So it's easy. Like, oh, hey, let's grab an espresso martini. And then it just feels like this whole adventure of like, oh my God, I met him here. And then we went there and we went there. But it was fun for me. Like, I loved that date. That's how I would spend my Tuesday night, anyways.
Hmm.
Tuesday night, crazy milkshakes with cakes on them, gingerbread, anal, perfect first date.
But generally,
Anyway,
no. Like, again, tiki drinks are better for a date.
alrighty.